What is up, everyone, and welcome to another video of the Fantasy Premier League 2021-22 season, guys. Today we'll be talking about wildcarding in Game Week 12, why and who should wildcard this week, what are the best case and worst case possibilities. We'll also look into some drafts and talk about some of the best players to target. Guys, if you like today's video, make sure you hit the like button. You can also consider subscribing if you're new around here. We're slowly but steadily marching towards the 1,000 subscribers mark, and we really appreciate your support. Great, with that, we'll start with why you should wildcard in Game Week 12. Now guys, there are always a few reasons in terms of why you should use any chip, whether it's wildcard or whether it's any other chip. There are some certain guidelines or certain rules that you should follow before you decide to play the chip. Now there are a few points here. First is the international break assessment, guys. We've had a couple of weeks away from football. There have been international games as well. So there are a few things that we need to consider. Let's say assuming that you've gotten things wrong, you've gotten your past transfers a bit wrong, you can correct all of that with a wildcard. You can make a fresh team and you could start afresh. Of course, now guys, we've had 11 weeks of football, so we have 11 weeks worth of data, and I think that's really important while taking decisions in terms of which players to go for in the coming games. Now, another major reason for going for the wildcard is that you want to change your structure. Let's say if you are not happy with your team in terms of how the structure is, whether it's going for two premiums, whether it's going for cheaper strikers up top, or maybe going for very expensive or cheaper players in midfield or defense, and you want to change the structure. Let's say you don't want to play a 4-4-2 anymore, you want to go for a 3-4-3, or you want to go 5 at the back as well, right? So considering all of these things, considering that you are not happy with your team and you want to change your structure, that's a really good time to do it, and wildcard really helps you get your desired team. Of course, you would also be able to catch price rises and price falls. So there'll be a few changes in terms of players going down or players going up in terms of prices during the international break. And I think the wildcard also serves that purpose and helps you take advantage of the entire situation. Now, the last reason is that there are a few teams who have great fixture swings, guys, who have decent fixtures. There are some teams that have tough fixtures, and you might want to replace those players with the players that have good and easy fixtures in the coming games. Now, teams like Man United, Liverpool, even Tottenham have great games, guys. Even the likes of Crystal Palace have a decent run of fixtures, and you might want to target a couple of players or maybe even triple ups from these teams. Another very important thing to consider here is that teams like Wolves, West Ham, and Arsenal, who have certain FPL assets, who have certain players in most of the managers' FPL teams, guys, you might want to replace those players because they have tricky fixtures coming up and you have better options to go for. And the wildcard really helps you get rid of all those players at once and start afresh. So guys, if you're falling into any of these categories, if you want to change your team structure, if you are looking to catch hold of those price rises and price falls, and you are looking to target these teams, these specific teams like Man United, Liverpool, and even the likes of Kane and Son, which we'll talk about a lot more in detail later in the video, I think wildcard really would serve you well, and this is a really great time to play the chip. Now, the first draft that we have, guys, today is a draft with Harry Kane in it, and we'll talk about a little more in detail in terms of what players do we have here. Now in goal we have Ramsdale and Foster. Both are really good options still. In case if you are looking to go a bit different, try a different route, you can also go for someone like a Guaita from Crystal Palace, who could also give you decent save points as well as clean sheet potential as well. I still feel Ramsdale is a decent keeper, is a decent option to go for. He again can give you clean sheet potential. He also makes a lot of saves, and I think he's put in decent performances to warrant his place in your team. And I think Foster along with Ramsdale looks like a really good combination. In case if you have someone like a Sanchez, for example, who's probably missing a couple of games, you might want to replace him. And let's say if you have your wildcard available, then guys, Guaita is a really good option to go for. I think he's one of the league's in-form goalkeepers right now. He's making a lot of saves, and of course he has that potential, especially after keeping clean sheets against Man City and Wolves. I don't think so any other keepers really warrant the list or should be looked at. And I think these three options are decent to go for. Now coming to defenders, guys, and we have a couple of premiums. In fact, we have 3 premium options along with Livramento and a certain Reguilon who we'll just talk about. Now Trent, he's absolutely ridiculous, guys. The consistency in his delivery has been unreal this season. I think that really sets him apart from the other crossers in this range of crossing. Now he can do back post, front post, drilled, dinked, early cross. I think he can really do it all, and I really don't think so you should consider your team without Trent in it. I know Liverpool's potential for clean sheets might take a hit because of the number of injuries that they are having in the squad right now. But guys, you don't own Trent just for the clean sheet potential. You have him because he's like a midfielder, giving you all those FPL points and a lot of attacking potential. I think he's a must-have in your team. Now, the other two options are also close to must-have picks, guys. Now, Cancelo, I think he's the best City defender to own right now. Of course, there could be some rotation nearing the end of December and probably the first week of January. But I think overall, he's still the best Man City defender to go for. There's a lot of attacking potential with Cancelo. Again, he can give you a lot of assists. He can give you bonus points. He can also give you a clean sheet, considering that Man City is a really good defense. And I think he's still a better option than someone like a Ruben Diaz or even someone like a John Stones, who might get the nod ahead of Laporte. And considering that he's very cheap, I still won't go there. I think Cancelo is still the option to own. Coming to a third defender, Reece James, guys. Of course, there's always a possibility of rotation with James, but I think he's worth the risk. Now, Chelsea typically create a lot of chances down the right side, guys. And specifically for this week, they're playing Leicester, who have conceded more chances down the left. So I think it's a recipe for success. I think there's a big haul coming up from Reece James, and I think he's a really good option to own for your wildcard team. The fourth option, I think, guys, which could be a bit surprising for a lot of people. Now, Reguilon, I know there's a lot of hue and cry, there's a lot of hype around the Tottenham assets, around the Spurs players, especially after Conte has come in, but I think he's still playing okay. He's, again, it's a very small sample size, it's a very small sample set, so you really can't compare Reguilon in general, but I think he could be a really high scoring defender. He could have a lot of attacking threat. He could be involved in goals, involved in assists. He could also have clean sheets, because with Conte coming in, I am assuming that the clean sheet potential will also go up. Spurs will be tight in defense. I think overall he could be a really good option. Plus, a big advantage with Reguilon, guys, is that you're saving some money. Let's say if you don't go for a Man City double up or a Chelsea double up and you go for Reguilon, you're saving some money and you can invest that money in midfield or in attack. Now, this draft, guys, it has one premium in a Mo Salah. I think he's absolutely unstoppable right now. Guys, he has the ability to rack up goals and assists in equal measure. And I think he's a definite must-have, even a definite captain pick for most game weeks than often. In this particular draft, guys, we've gone for a Liverpool double-up in Diego Jota as well. Now, again, there's no confirmed timeline in terms of how long is Firmino out. And let's say if he's out for at least 4 to 5 game weeks, guys, I think Jota is a really good option to go for. I think his position in that case is pretty much nailed, and he should be getting majority minutes. We know that Liverpool is a really good attacking side, probably the best attacking unit or the attacking team for this particular season till now, and I think having a double up with Jota could really give you a lot of FPL points and a differential route to rank gains as well. Now, we also have Foden, who's the only attacking Man City asset that we have in our team right now, guys, and I think it's pretty much safe to consider Foden in your teams. I know it's a little surprising that I'm saying Foden is a safe asset, but when I'm talking about other Man City players, let's say the Kevin De Bruyne, the Jack Grealish, even Jesus, for example, who's obviously an attacker and a forward player, but I still feel Foden should play majority minutes for Pep. I think he has great potential, guys. We've seen that he has decent potential. He can haul big. He can give you those 15-20 pointers. And I think with his a surety of minutes, with him playing a very attacking role in the Man City side, maybe even a false nine in certain situations, guys, I think he can give us really good FPL points, and he's a definite one to consider for your wildcard team. Now, guys, the other two options for this particular draft are very budget, but they are doing really well right now. I don't think so they'll be differential in any capacity. I think they're a part of the template FPL team that a lot of managers would be having. But guys, of course, at the end of the day, we want to do things differently, but we also want to attack players, or we want to get players who are doing really well, and the likes of Gallagher and Emil Smith-Rowe, guys, are probably the top two or the best two attacking midfielders in the game right now. Now, I personally felt the grunt with Gallagher, guys. I had him for quite a few weeks, but I have not played him over the last couple of weeks, and I have lost out on a lot of FPL points. Having said that, he's got 3 attacking returns in his last 2 matches. He's also the second highest scoring midfielder in the game, guys, behind Salah, and I think at that price point, giving those kind of returns, you just have to have him in your team. Now, a lot of people are also considering this Gallagher versus Emil Smith-Rowe debate, and if I have to choose one, I'll probably go with Gallagher because he has superior numbers, because he has probably better fixtures. But I think having Emil Smith-Rowe is also pretty much a good call. I think a lot of people have also kind of thought in terms of how Emil Smith-Rowe is performing. He's definitely overperforming his numbers, and you would feel that it's probably unsustainable. He cannot do that week in, week out, guys. But in general, his numbers over the last season were also kind of similar. Of course, they were not as attacking or as good as this season, but he also overperformed his XG last season, and I think he could still continue to do that as well. Having said that, I still believe Emil Smith Rowe is a really good option, guys. I think both Gallagher and Smith Rowe are decent options, and a combination of them could be a really good call. Now, coming to forwards, guys, we have one premium forward who's like a placeholder where we can go a lot of ways, we can do a lot of things. There are multiple directions that we can take with someone like a Harry Kane. Now, I think Harry Kane is, of course, he's a great player. We know that he's not been in top form or he's had his issues on and off the pitch, but I think Conte is a great coach. I think Harry Kane is also a great player. Given the run of fixtures in the next few weeks, guys, this is the perfect platform for Kane to bounce back. I know there's a lot of hype around Kane, but with the ownership that he has right now, it's probably about 7 to 8%, probably about 10%. I'm not really sure about the number, but I think at that price point, with that ownership, he's a great differential. I know a lot of people are kind of waiting and watching in terms of how Tottenham perform, especially over these easier run of fixtures, and how Conte decides in terms of how to use Kane and Son and their partnership together. But if you want to go a little bit early, if you want to take advantage of that differential and kind of go away from the crowd, Kane is a really good option to go for. I think he's been doing really well for England, and I feel he's going to score and he's going to become a great FPL option very, very soon. And you can get ahead of the curve and get Harry Kane in your team. Now, because we've got Kane, because we've got that expensive placeholder, the other two options that we have in our team, and considering how we've managed the entire squad, we've gone for someone like a Wang and Adam Armstrong from Southampton, guys. Both are really budget options. Both, again, could be played together. We can choose the fixture, which is the easier fixture for which player, and then play that player along with Kane. I think Wang looks pretty nailed in that Wolves attack. He's also the goal scorer that Wolves are looking for. Yes, Jimenez is also doing pretty well, but he's at a higher price point. The returns are pretty much similar, guys. I feel Wang is still the goal scorer for Wolves. Jimenez has been the creative output. He's been doing a lot better in terms of creativity. And I feel Wang could be a decent option to go for, especially for the next couple of games, next 3 games, where I think he's facing Norwich and Burnley in the next 3 games. And I think that could spell really high FPL points. So in a short run, I think he's a great option to go for. Of course, you can bench him for the tougher games, and you can replace him with other options as well. Our third option is Adam Armstrong, guys. He has Norwich this week in game week 12. Like Wang, we can also bench him for the trickier games. We can probably play a 4-5-1, or with just a couple of strikers, we can even play a 3-4-3 if the games for Wang and Armstrong are really good. So that gives us a lot of flexibility. Plus, with the busy period coming on very soon, guys, I think that also gives us flexibility in terms of our bench. There are a few options on our bench who could come on for players who don't start, and I think it's a pretty decent team. Now, I really like the first draft, guys, but in case if you want to do things a bit differently, you could also save some money here. You could do something different. Instead of Reguilon, you could go for someone like a Mitchell, who also has decent fixtures. He's a very cheap player. I think it's around 4.5 million. And at that price point, he could be a great budget enabler. Palace in terms of attack have done really well. And I think that's going to be better. It's going to improve week on week with games. I think they can also score against the tougher teams, as we've seen already. And I think with Mitchell bombing forward, he has the assist potential. There is clean sheet potential as well. And I feel he could be a really cheeky move, guys. He could be a really cheeky player, a great differential in your team who could give you a lot of FPL points. Now, what we've done in this particular draft, we've upgraded Foden to a Son, and then we've downgraded Emil Smith Rowe to a Norman, who's like a 4.5 million midfielder. He could be any other midfielder in the game. He could be Douglas Lewis probably once he's fit, who might be a little better in terms of FPL potential. But I think Norman right now, to balance the books, looks pretty fine. Now, this draft, guys, it only has Son. It doesn't have Kane. A lot of people might think that Kane is a lot more expensive. Let's say they don't want to invest too much money in their attack, among their forwards. So they can also go for someone like a Son, who could spell a lot of FPL points, who could do really well in the upcoming games. Yes, I know there are a lot of doubts in terms of how Conte is going to use Kane, and we don't really know the potential there, but I still feel Son could be a really good, attractive proposition at the time, guys. I know Kane, with current form, Kane obviously doesn't really merit his place in the team. He's just scored 1 goal, 1 assist in 10 Premier League games. Now, on the other hand, Son has 6 attacking returns, and that's a lot better when we talk about FPL. Having said that, now the things could change very, very fast, guys. Conte has come in The tactical formations are going to change. The way Spurs approach games, that's also going to change. And I think Son could still be a really good option if you're not confident in terms of how Kane is going to return. You could go for the slightly cheaper option. You could save some money there and you could invest that additional money elsewhere. You're absolutely right in terms of thinking that Son could be more value, and especially when you're not thinking of captaining a Spurs player, when you're thinking of captaining Salah for more weeks than not, I think there's merit in saving that 2 odd million and probably use it elsewhere in your FPL team. In terms of front three for this particular draft, guys, of course we don't have Harry Kane for this one, so we have Jamie Vardy. I think Vardy is also a decent option. Chelsea game could be a bit tricky, but I think he can still score. Yes, he's shown that he can score against the bigger teams as well. But guys, I think more than the Chelsea game, I think the fixtures after that are looking pretty good. He's playing Watford, Southampton, Aston Villa and Newcastle in the next 4. Now all these teams don't really have a very good defense right now. They are leaking goals. Of course, the likes of Villa and Newcastle, they have new managers, so there could be a manager bounce. They could be a bit tight defensively, but I still feel Vardy could do really well in these games. Yes, I know that he's not scored in the last 3 games, but guys, how many times have we seen with him that he can come in, he can score a goal, and he can get into form in absolutely no time. I think if you're not sure about Kane's potential or how he's going to do under Conte, you could go for the safer Jamie Vardy. I know his ownership is also pretty decent, so I think you're playing safe. You are trusting a player who has proved himself or who has done decently well this season as well in terms of FPL, and I don't think so it's the worst move to keep Jamie Vardy in your team. Now the other change among forwards is going for Wilson from Newcastle, guys. Now, Newcastle's coach Eddie Howe, he knows how to get the best out of Wilson from their time together. They've played together at Bournemouth, and I think we can expect to see a new manager bounce, especially when you talk about Newcastle, especially when you talk about the whole situation and what's going around the club. I think they would be very motivated to do well with the new ownership, with a lot of money coming in, with the new manager coming in as well. And I think Wilson generally has been doing decently well for Newcastle. I personally feel for a short duration, for the next 3 to 4 game weeks, he could be a really good punt, a really good differential in your team if you're looking to do things a bit differently. Having said that, the wildcard of course gives you that opportunity to get that differential, guys. Not a lot of people who don't have the wildcard available, they won't be going for someone like a Wilson. They probably go for someone like a Kane, like a Son, or maybe a lot safer moves. But if you have your wildcard available, going for Wilson could be a very shrewd option. Now we have the third draft, guys, and this draft, very excitingly, it has Kane and Son. If let's assume you are going aboard that Conte train, if you're very confident in terms of how Tottenham are going to do, or probably they're going to do well, you could go even for a double up in Kane and Son. I know it's a bit risky. I know not a lot of people are considering a double up right now. But again, like I said earlier in the video, you could, with your wildcard, get ahead of the curve, take advantage of that double up, take advantage of Spurs' easier fixtures where a lot of people won't be having even both players at that point of time. So you could get those points, get the advantage and go for a double up. This draft has a combination of Kane and Son. I think the defense here is pretty much the same. We're not really changing the defense here a lot. In general, defense doesn't really have a lot of other options to go for. I think it's a pretty much set template in terms of what players you can target. You can still go for a couple of differentials in Reguilon and Mitchell, but I think overall the defense looks pretty sound. Now for this draft, we have Emil Smith-Rowe instead of Jota. We've not gone for Jota. And if you have Salah, I think you're pretty much covered in terms of the Liverpool attack. Here also we have Son and Gallagher as a part of the Kane and Son combination. Again, with not having Jota, you might miss a slight window of opportunity where you could gain some FPL points, where you could gain some ranks. But Emil Smith-Rowe is also a very good option. He could also be on the bench for the tougher games, guys. So overall, I don't think so it's a bad move. Now in terms of attack, guys, the only change here is that we've gone for Broja or Broha. I don't know how you pronounce that, but we've gone for him instead of Wang from Wolves. I think his injury doesn't look very serious, guys. He has had a good run with the Saints team. We know that he's a great finisher, and I think you could easily play him for the easier set of fixtures. The biggest plus point with him, guys, is that he's super cheap. So technically, you're not leaving a lot of money on your bench as well. I think that really helps you spreading your funds elsewhere in your FPL team. Overall, this is also a very good team, guys. It has the advantage of that Kane and Son double up. It has Wilson as a differential. It also has Mitchell as a really good option. And I think if you really want to get ahead of the curve, if you are okay taking a bit of a risk, if you're lagging behind, if you're doing some catch up, I think this team is a very solid team, guys. Now we have the last draft of today's video, guys, and this is also a very interesting one. Let's assume You don't trust Conte. You have absolutely no idea what's going to happen with Tottenham. You could also go for a team which has absolutely zero, absolutely no Spurs assets in it. Of course, if you don't go for Spurs players, you could also have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to structure your team. And for this particular draft, guys, we've gone for a double Chelsea defense in Chilwell and James. I know a lot of people already have that, but again, if you want to take advantage of that clean sheet potential, of that attacking potential as well, let's say you have James, but you're missing out on Chilwell points, or you have Chilwell and you probably want to get on James and you can't decide which one to kind of let go, you could have both guys. They're really good players, they're really good options. The attacking potential is massive, and I think it still is a kind of a differential having both in your team. So essentially for this particular draft, you're having 5 really good defenders. Even Livramento, I think he's done really well. He has good attacking potential. We've seen how he advances in the game. He bombs forward. He can also cross the ball. He can get assists. Yes, Southampton has also been getting a few clean sheets. So I think there's decent potential in Livramento as well. And I think he's possibly the best cheap defender option in the game right now. Now coming to midfield, we have the likes of Smith Rowe, Gallagher, Salah and Foden. I think Foden is also a player who not a lot of people are trusting right now. I know his ownership is pretty decent, but I still feel a lot of people might sell him for someone like a Son or maybe even Jota, considering that he might have more minutes than Foden in the upcoming games. That thought is absolutely not wrong, guys. It's a pretty fair assessment to go for someone like a Son or maybe even Jota instead of Foden. But as we've seen in the games earlier in the season, guys, Foden could really explode in the FPL scene. He can really give you those 15-20 pointers, and I think he's still a very good option to go for. So essentially, Foden comes in for Son. Now up top, it's a try of Wilson, Broja or Broha and Ronaldo. I think it's also a very good combination. I know not a lot of people are talking about Ronaldo, considering how Man United are playing. I know it doesn't really give you a lot of confidence because you don't really know what to expect of them. Some weeks they're very good, some weeks they're really bad. Yes, defensively they're still very bad, so you won't really be investing in a lot of defensive assets from Man United, guys. But I think their run from game week 16 till about game week 27, that's a hell lot of a game weeks, guys. That's a huge run, and I think you can take advantage of that by having someone like a Ronaldo. Yes, we know that he's a great goal scorer. Yes, we know that he's gonna score for Man United. And I know he's expensive, especially when you don't consider captaining him. I think he's an expensive player to have, but I still feel he's really, really good, guys. He could give you a lot of FPL points. And if you don't want to go the Kane route, if you feel that you're not confident, you want to see for a couple of weeks, but you are using your wildcard, so you have to, of course, get your forwards in. So you can go for Ronaldo as well. And I know not a lot of people would be choosing him or going for him on their wildcards, and that could be a differential in itself. If you ask me, guys, I personally like the Kane upfront system with maybe Son after a couple of weeks, depending on how Tottenham play. Of course, I'm a manager who likes to take a bit of a risk, likes to take a few punts. If you're very safe, or if you want to play very, very safe, guys, then you have the likes of Vardy. You also have the likes of Antonio, which I have not really spoken about in the video. I think if you're on a wildcard, there's a good possibility, it's a good chance that you can go and you can do things a bit differently. You don't need to have Antonio in your team. Yes, I know that he can score goals. The fixtures are a bit tricky, but he's not really been in goal scoring form. He's been playing okay. He's just been a bit unlucky in terms of getting FPL returns. And here you have a chance to do things a bit differently. I know that you won't lose a lot if you don't have Kane, but at the same time, guys, if you don't buy a ticket to the lottery, you won't win the lottery. You won't gain too much as well. I think that's a negative for me. Son, on the other hand, he's a bit tricky. His ownership is a bit high. So personally, if I had my wildcard left, I would go for Kane over Son, guys. I know there are a lot of options in midfield with the likes of Gallagher, Emil Smith-Rowe, Jota, who could provide more value than Son at the moment. And for that reason, plus not really having a lot of forwards as FPL options at the moment, I think having Kane in your team could be a really good differential move. His ownership is low, so going early on Kane, guys, that might just give you the right rank boost. So these were at Game Week 12 wildcard draft, guys. Let me know what you think about these. Do you fancy any of these players? Are you looking to get in Kane or Son, or maybe even a double up in your team on your wildcard? Do let me know in the comments below. Great, so that'll be all from my side, guys. I hope I was able to give you some clarity in terms of your wildcard team if you're using the chip in Game Week 12. Do smash that like button if you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, guys. We'll be back in a couple of days with a team selection video for Game Week 12, so do look out for that. Till then, keep thinking with your FPL teams, and I'll see you insaners next time.